What's up, guys? Welcome into Good Morning Lambeau. My name is Clayton. You can check us out on packernet.com. Find me on Twitter at Packers_access. Email us, PackersTotalAccess@gmail.com. You can text us 865-658-5824. Join alongside Tim in Green Bay, a snowy Green Bay, right, Tim? You got some weather blowing through right now, a little chilly out there.
Yeah, get a little dusting. The cold's coming tomorrow, but today we got a little bit of snow. So, it's winter in Titletown. You got to love it.
Absolutely. Just gotta stay prepared, man. Got to dress warm. Got to be ready. Make sure you got good tires on that sled, right? And you can get around. Just all about being prepared. And if you're going to be prepared, you want to go to Packers games this year, make sure you go over to Ticket King, the official ticket provider of Packer Fan Total Access Live. Wisconsin based since '92, specializing in Packers tickets. They're Wisconsin's largest ticket source. Got offices next to Lambeau and in Milwaukee. Click on the link in the video description. It'll send you to their website, theticketking.com. Register as a customer there and go ahead and start shopping for your Packers tickets. Again, that's Ticket King, the official ticket provider of Packer Fan Total Access Live. So obviously we're going live 30 minutes early this morning. We try to keep things pretty consistent around here and going live at 8:30 Central Time, but schedules change and obviously we got a busy day, so we're going to get out and take care of some errands today. I know Tim's got a bunch of stuff to do too, so here we are a few minutes early. But I hope everybody's doing well. I see the chat's already lighting up. Everybody figuring out crap. They're live already. Nick McSwain in here says, looking at first down rushing numbers, and Packers are fifth in the league at 39.46%. They're less than 1% less than the number 4 team. Nice. So pretty much neck and neck with the 4 team. Nick also says Philly is a huge outlier at 49.08%, which is 9% higher than the number 2 team. Last 3 games, they've ran third most at 44.8%. Don't think it's a coincidence they've scored more than 30 points the last 3 games. Great point, Nick. Great point. You're preaching to the choir here, though, brother. Nick goes on to say, obviously not going to have the same game plan every week. Curious to see if they trend up in first down rushes the rest of the season. I love that you added that in there, Nick. We're right on the same page, man. You're not going to have the same game plan every week. You're going to you're going to see different looks depending on the team you're playing and your last 3 game saturation. And obviously they've scouted you as their opponent, right? And then, of course, you're going to get things thrown into the game plan like Detroit did, where we came out in 11 personnel and they came out in a 34. And it's like, okay, we got to pass here, right? Or we're just running against the wall in that situation. So, Tim, I know you were very vocal last week. Got to run the rock. I'm sure all this hits home with you right here, what Nick's saying.
Oh yeah, for sure. And him bringing up Philly as an outlier, that's a great comp. Philly having arguably the best running back in the NFL in Saquon Barkley. Obviously they're going to feed him the rock, and that's how I feel about Josh Jacobs, right? My attitude is, if they're daring you to pass and they're stacked against the run, make them prove it. I would have loved to see a couple Josh Jacobs touches there in the run game. Maybe run something to the outside or, some deception and still run the ball on first down just to keep that defense honest and set up your play action down the road. But I do understand, Tupac LaFleur likes to let it rip, and if he sees, pass-friendly coverage, he's going to be tempted to dial something up. And, Jordan Love, too, to his credit, he will can out of a run real quick and take a shot play, no problem. So I think that's what you're seeing. And obviously, when we hit on those, we love it. When we don't, we complain about not running the ball on first down. So, it's hard to keep us fans satisfied. But, no, that's a great point by Nick to pull up those numbers. It is good to see the Packers, trending in the right direction, though, hanging around that top 5. We do have a good running back room, and, I feel like they are underutilized sometimes in the run game. We see them active in the pass game a lot. But I think we should stick with the run. Obviously, game plans change week to week. We'll see what happens here for the Seattle Seahawks game. But I'm hoping we see some first down runs, at least early in the game. Like you always say, that 4 quarters, how you break down a game. By the time you hit that 3rd, 4th quarter, everything could change compared to what you did in the first half. But I like to see them setting the tone early and establish the run for sure.
Yeah. And again, if they do load the box, there's other ways that you can play it safe through the passing game, whether it be a bubble screen, a smoke screen, maybe a screen pass. You could also draw up a concept where you've got basically 2 underneath, try to spread the defense, try to stretch them vertically since they are loading the box. Little play action, dink and dunk underneath with a spot route and a swing combo, right? There's a lot of things you can do in that regard. But the problem I have is when it's obvious, okay, we know the easiest down to pass on is first down. But man, it is a risk, right? Like if you fall to 2nd and 10, you're going to struggle to score on that drive. That's just the number.
You put yourself in a position where the defense knows now you're throwing for sure. Exactly. If you get behind the 8 ball, you're definitely throwing the next couple of downs.
Yeah.
And it makes it harder for you.
And when you look at the Detroit Lions, it's totally the opposite. See, they're playing chess here. They're going, you know what? We're okay with throwing on first down because we're going to go for it on 4th down. They're okay with throwing on 2nd and 10 because if they don't get it, they'll just run the ball twice on 3rd and 4th down, right?
Yep.
Like they're not scared to run on 3rd and long, and that is definitely something that Matt LaFleur does not do. I wouldn't be surprised, and we try to find little trends every year. I wouldn't be surprised if that becomes a little mini trend across the league that people look at what Ben Johnson's doing on 3rd and longs. When I say 3rd and long, it doesn't mean 3rd and 15. It means anything over 3rd and 6. Right.
Most teams 3rd and 7, 3rd and 8.
Bingo.
Yeah, mix in a draw play or something. Mix in something.
Yeah, definitely. And again, I'm happy with the run game. I'm happy with Matt LaFleur's offense. We'll actually talk about that here in a second. Josh Martin says, if we clinch this week, do we start resting players for the wild card game? Man, this conversation right here could take a turn in any direction, Josh. Me personally, I am not a fan of resting players. I'm from the John Madden old school of thought. Like I remember when it was, I think it was, I'm trying to think of the coach, Fossil. Coach, no, not Fossil. What was his name? Who was the Giants coach? God, I can't believe this is evading me here. Giants coach that won the Super Bowls, right? And they ended up running out of town, and he went back to Jacksonville. Why can't I can see his name. I can see his face. I can't think of his name. Who was his name? Help me out, chat. You guys know who I'm talking about. Coach of the New York Giants, won multiple Super Bowls, went to the Jaguars to help out down there after the Mara family fired him in New York.
Tom Coughlin. Dan Reeves?
Tom Coughlin.
Oh, Coughlin. Okay, Coughlin.
Mr. Cakes. Thank you so much, buddy. Tom Coughlin talked about this. The year that they basically could have sat players, and they decided, you know what, we're just going to play through it. Lo and behold, I think they ended up winning the Super Bowl. He said John Madden called and left him a voicemail and was like, thank you so much for not sitting your players. He said, the second that we don't have competition because players or teams are strategically trying to position themselves because, we can't improve our seed and this and that, said the second we do that, we don't have a game. We don't have any competitiveness anymore. And I thought it was awesome that he said that because that's kind of how I've always felt. And the other thing is momentum. Like I remember one year the Colts set their starters, they got their ass kicked first round of the playoffs because you take all that wind out of the sails. It doesn't mean you play them out there all 4 quarters. It doesn't mean that you go all in with the game plan. Like, you're still trying to tuck things away for the next potential opponent. You probably know who your opponent's going to be for the most part. It just but this whole let's just sit everybody and take an extra week off, and I'm not a fan of it personally. I don't know how you feel, Tim. What do you think?
No, I 100% agree. I'm from that same era. You and I are pretty close in age. We grew up watching the same type of ball, and I'm a bigger fan of screw it, let the starters start. Let's go out, get a 3-score lead, 4-score lead, and then we can pull you early and you can get your rest in the second half or something. And you rotate some of that supporting cast in so they've got fresh legs as you storm into the playoffs. But if you start tweaking that depth chart towards the end of the year and you're playing not to get hurt or you're playing to rest guys, that's when
you get hurt.
You find yourself in a bad spot. Then all of a sudden you get a backup who tweaks something, and now you got to throw a starter back out there who's cold and has been sitting, and then you run the risk of getting that guy hurt too. And now you're in a world of crap, going forward. I'm a big proponent of just, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. Stick with what you got. Next man up mentality, starters are going to start, period.
Yeah. Prince in the chat says Pittsburgh at Philadelphia, Buffalo at Detroit, Chicago at Minnesota, Green Bay at Seattle. Big weekend for the top of the NFC teams. Absolutely love it, man. That's hard not to get excited about. Matter of fact, let's take a quick look at the cheat sheet here as we've got it from Nerdin on NFL. Shout out to them for creating this awesome graphic. And Prince, thanks for bringing this up, buddy. This is my type of topic this time of year for sure. Again, he says Pittsburgh at Philadelphia, and you can see it is probably the one that's covered up now right there. So that's going to be a 4:25 kickoff. That'll be a dandy for sure. 2 of the best teams in the league going at it, obviously both in Pennsylvania. You got the Yinzers versus the Johns, as they call them over there, right? Then you've got Buffalo at Detroit. That's going to be a 4:25 kickoff, so that'll be a split screen.
Let's go, Buffalo.
Yes, sir. And then you've got Chicago at Minnesota. That's the Monday night football game, so that's awesome. We'll get to catch that one. And then, of course, Green Bay, Seattle is the Sunday night game of the week. So what we essentially got here, Tim, and I'm sure there's other games, and we'll talk about it a little later in the week. I'm sure there's other games in that 1 o'clock window. They're going to have playoff implications somewhat on the NFC as well. But you got two games go split screen on Sunday Ticket with the Pittsburgh Steelers at Philadelphia and the Buffalo Bills at Detroit. You're going to get great football there. And then, of course, like we said, you got your Sunday night game of the week in Green Bay at Seattle. And then, of course, Monday night football, you can just kind of chill and watch that game and hope the Bears can upset the Vikings somehow, some way. I'm not holding my breath. It's the Bears. And, Tim, we know the state of the Bears, right? We got a pretty good grab on who they are and what they do here in this league.
Hey, even a broken clock's right twice a day. I mean, the Bears are due. You're telling me there's a chance. Maybe they can squeak one out in Minneapolis, get a win. That would be awesome. But you're right. I'm not holding my breath on that one.
Definitely. So
the Bears still suck.
That's what I was waiting on right there, man. Appreciate that. All right, so that is just a quick glance at some of the big games coming up. Let's go to Twitter real quick. Matt Schneidman put a cool tweet out, and what he said was, I saw 3 high school boys not with the event go nuts when they saw Jordan Love, who gave them a head nod. A 75-year-old woman ditched her husband on a walker to take a close-up photo of Love. Neat to see these guys out in the flesh. So obviously talking about Jordan Love being out with kids the other night. And
Nana was over there like,
here's the guy.
Gotta go get that photo.
I imagine she's helping her husband walk, and she just lets him go, and he falls on the floor. She runs over to take a picture of Jordan. You know what I mean?
Oh.
But then obviously Matt Schneidman had quote tweeted, I hope I'm saying this name right, Tasha Buckholtz, and said, yesterday he was at middle school where I teach, giving shoes to our kids. I wish he knew what a difference he makes in these kids' lives. So pretty cool, man, that's QB1. I don't know about you, Tim, but that fires me up, dude.
No, I absolutely love that. Here's a guy that, in the middle of a grind right now and always has time for things like this. And, he's not the only one. That's kind of a staple of what the Packers do. I mean, every team across the league, they do their outreach and things like that. This is not to take away from anyone else, but here in Green Bay, man, it's a little bit different. And you see these guys on the regular out in the community trying to make a difference. And that's a great point too, by Tasha here, saying that I wish he knew what a difference he makes in these kids' lives. I'm willing to bet Jordan probably does. He probably understands the impact that just him maybe taking an hour or two out of his day to do something like this for the kids in the community. It does make an impact, and you love to see it, man. That's our QB1 right there for sure.
Yeah, Nick McSwain said, "Get it, Nana." I wonder if Nana hit Pops with the swim move. Was it the swim or the rip, you think, to get away from that walker and get over there to see J Love?
I think she did the Reggie White, the hump move. She just the one arm. Get out of my way, Herb. That's Jordan Love over there.
Put him right into one of those benches at Bay Square Park. Bang! All right, ain't that what it's called, Tim? Bay Square? Am I thinking right?
Bay Park, yeah, the
Park,
mall over there, yeah.
So me and Mandy, we went there the first time we went to Green Bay. Of course, she's going to find a way to shop. And next thing you know, I was having dishes mailed from a coffee shop in the mall. She just fell in love with some dishes in there. So they were shipping them back home as we had a 13-hour drive ahead of us the first time we went up. But,
you got to do what I do. You just you let the missus do the shopping, and then you run over to Chick-fil-A and hang out. Get you some chicken sandwiches.
So, again, shout out to Nana and her pass rush moves over there at the mall for sure. All right, next thing, Jacob Morley put out a tweet, and here is what Mr. Morley had to say per the Packers dope sheet. The Packers rank in the top 10 of the NFL in the following offensive categories this season. Total yards per game at 376.3. That's sixth in the league. Yards per play at 6.28. That's number 3 in the league. Rushing yards per game, 144.7. That's fifth best in the league. Rushing yards per play at 4.75. That's seventh best in the league. Passing yards per play, 8.20. That's third in the league. Sacks allowed per pass attempt, 4.36%. That's number 3 in the league. And then points per game, 26.8. That's seventh best in the league. Sacks allowed, 16. That's second best in the league. Matt LaFleur's got this offense humming, Tim.
Yeah, absolutely. And, we talk about this O-line and, strengths and weaknesses. I feel like the run blocking is coming around these last couple of weeks for sure, which complements a great pass pro that we know this line is capable of. And, yeah, you see it right here in the numbers, man. They don't lie.
Yeah, love to see it, man. And again, Matt LaFleur finally getting some of his flowers, man. No doubt about that. So there we go with that. Just want to kind of hit on a little bit of what we came across on Twitter earlier today. So go into the chat. Green Ranger, Jordan Love Carey in the G. Yes, sir, he is. Prince in the chat says the Bears are due to win a division game. They played all three teams tied the first go. That's a great point, Prince. They've been on the cusp of beating all three division teams this year. Obviously the Packers squeaked it out by blocking a field goal. The Lions, thank God they had a Thanksgiving Day gaffe there by the Bears coaching staff and Caleb Williams. And then, of course, it was the Vikings. It seemed like something came down to the wire, too, there with the Vikings as well. It was a real close game, too.
Oh, yeah, the Bears totally crapped the bed on that. They had every opportunity to beat the Vikings. But I think, it's a great point that Prince makes. They're due. You look at law of probability alone. They've been in a lot of close games, much like we have this year. We've been in a lot of close games and then, found a way to win or, at least stay in that game and not get boat raced. I think the Bears might be due for a win. And then you look at an interim head coach in Chicago right now trying to prove himself in this league, his first crack at a head coaching spot. You got to believe that, that staff is willing to dial up any and everything, launch all the missiles and see if something lands. So I think there's some logic to thinking maybe, just maybe, the Bears get past Minnesota.
Yeah, I can see that too. Professor Cakes says Jordan grew up without his father, so I guarantee he knows the importance of outreach programs. Amen, man. When you heard Jordan Love's story and the fact that Jordan wasn't very vocal about it says a lot too. Like it was obviously it's who it is what shaped him as a man, the man he is today. And the fact that both of his parents were police officers and serving their community and hearing people that knew his father and how, he took care of people in the community. He was like that rock that people could lean on in the community. And then, of course, you guys have heard Jordan talk about it, I'm sure. And I refrain from talking about any details on it for a long time because I feel like it's his place to bring it up.
Right.
But he mentioned that his dad's medication got changed, right? And I want to say, I could be wrong, I want to say it was just like blood pressure medicine or something too, something simple. And that caused him to have a reaction to a sense where obviously he made the decision there to we'll just leave it at that. And
it's important to say that he didn't grow up without his father. There were, his
Right.
father was there every step of the way through his childhood. And I believe his father passed right before Jordan's freshman year of high school or around freshman year of high school, something like that.
Mhm.
So yeah, certainly tough teenage years without your pops. And, a lot of the things that Jordan went through in his younger days is what's made him into the man and the player that we see today. But I think it's very true to point that out, that clearly he understands the importance of what it means to reach out to those that, maybe don't have it as good as you do or that you did growing up. And, life has a way of molding your future based on what you go through today or yesterday. And Jordan's a great example of that. And it's just really cool to see him continue to reach out.
Yeah. And Nick McSwain in the chat said that happened to my wife's ex. Not a lot of people talk about medication doing that, but it's a real issue and it needs more attention. Yeah. And you guys know a little bit of my story. I lost my mom a couple years ago, and she worked her ass off her whole life to provide for us, and then had to have 2 knee replacements. And next thing you know, bang, she's addicted to opioids. So, and that was a huge crisis. Like the town and the county that I'm from back home, it was known as the Oxycontin capital of the world. And it's just malpractice out the ass all throughout the Appalachian region. And it's sad, man. It needs more attention. It seems like when you speak out about it, people get upset. And it's like, I don't care anymore. Like,
that's how you break that stigma. People get this stigma that they're some kind of, drug addict pillhead, and it's not That's not the case. People
like as if they were born like that or something.
Yeah,
Bad person to say.
or it's a recreational choice that people chose to be dependent on these substances. Look, like we talked about Jordan Love's dad, right? A simple blood pressure medication. Your mom had injuries, needed pain medicine prescribed by doctors. Things happen. Life happens. It's important that we reserve our judgments when it comes to dealing with our fellow man out there.
Yeah, absolutely, man. Absolutely. All right, let's see. There's something else I wanted to hit real quick. Let's jump into some of the NFL pro guys. We've been talking about our defense and really breaking down our whole roster and talking from a PFF standpoint. And what we're starting to do now is cross-check that with key statistics and things. Okay, PFF isn't everything. Here's one source that we got with PFF. Here's how they see a certain player or a position group on the team. And now let's cross-check it and see how it stacks up with the rest of the NFL and even the players at their respective positions on the Packers. So what I did was I went to NFL Pro. Obviously, we got the qualified defenders only here, okay? So it kind of removes some of the noise there. And we're going to go passer rating when targeted. Let's see when the first Packer pops up. I was telling Tim this earlier, really, really frustrating. These are supposed to be team logos, and they're not showing up, right? So that makes it a little bit easier to identify where the Packer players are. So I did a little Google research. Okay, it says what you need to do is clear your cache on your browser. So I went and cleared my cache on my browser, and being the dumb redneck I am, I didn't realize that was going to reset everything on the computer this morning. So I spent an hour trying to get everything set back up. So you guys, or Tim, if you'll help me kind of notice where these players are, you're looking for this dark green dot as opposed to the G, okay? And I know it's something to do with my browser because on my phone the icons show up. I guess it's better to have tighter security than looser security, though, when it comes to your intra-web here. But the first one on the list here for the Packers in terms of passer rating when targeted is our very own Xavier McKinney. Now, keep in mind, guys, we've got this sorted by – as a matter of fact, I was going to do it like this. Let's start with DBs. So this is NFL DBs. Sorry, no results. Wonderful. This is going great. Let's try linebackers. All right, linebackers is keying up. Let's see if DBs will now. All right,
there you go. Look at that.
Look at that. So let's go.
Hey man, we even got some logos. All right.
Now we're back in business. Look at this. All right. So passer rating when targeted first on the team is Xavier McKinney at a 52.2. No surprise there. And listen, everybody knows I hate Kirby Joseph as much as the next Packer fan. But that boy is having a year. 15.6 passer rating when targeted, man. That is wild. So obviously he's better in passer rating when targeted, but when you look at stops, he's only got 11 run stops. Xavier McKinney's got 14, so Xavier McKinney's been a slightly better run defender as opposed to passing. But Xavier McKinney 52.2 passer rating when targeted. The next one, Evan Williams, number 16, with a 57.1 passer rating when targeted. Okay, so our safeties, we know they're good to go, right? We're all good there. Let's slide on down here and let's extend this list. Let's see if we can find our first cornerback on the list. Is it really going to hiccup this much? Here we go. Okay. All right. So next corner on the list for the Packers, our first corner is Jair Alexander in the 48 spot at 77.6. So again, the problem with Jair isn't his play on the field. It's him staying healthy. We've talked about that all year long. So when we're doing this kind of roster breakdown and all right, what positions do we think are needs? Jair by PFF was ranked as the 11th best cornerback in the league. And here you're seeing if you remove all the safeties, unfortunately, NFL Pro will just do it by DB, so you can't separate the corners from the safeties. But essentially what you're looking at for these positions, you go 4 positions times 32. You guys know it's going to be well over 130 players. The fact that he's in the top 40 here or top 50 shows you he's a legit number one corner. There's no doubt about it when he's on the field. So PFF suggests it. The passer rating when targeted is the best on the Packers roster from a cornerback standpoint. You're good to go there with Jair if he can stay healthy. And Tim, that's no surprise, right? We've talked about that all year.
And you see that with a lot of top-tier players. We were looking at, edge rushers last night. And, you see Aiden Hutchinson popping up at the top of the list. The guy hasn't played football in a month. And his numbers are still, in the upper echelon. And you see that with Jair, right? Jair's missed a large chunk of this season and, still up in the top tier of these defenders. So it shows you who your top tier talent is for sure. But yeah, the issue with Ja is not It's not the on-field antics or play. We love it. It's the fact that we haven't seen him on a football field in a long time. I got to think that, him having a couple close calls there was a couple games where we thought he might go and he ultimately didn't. I'm thinking maybe they're just holding out, and once he's back in that lineup, hopefully he never leaves it again and he just finishes this year out strong.
Yeah. Ron Samble asks, are corners typically going to give higher percentage than safeties? It feels like that's the case. And unfortunately, we can't separate the safeties from the corners. We can do that like on PFF or NFL.com website for stats, but I'm not going to go through all that time right now. But typically that's why I was talking about if you're in the top, 120, 130-ish, you're a legit number one corner, in my opinion, because there's going to be safeties, two different safety groups sprinkled in here too, both strong and free, whether they're interchangeable or not, because they're getting targeted, way more often. And again, they're covering a lot more space as opposed to a safety whose eyes on that player coming at them. Typically the passer rating when targeted is significantly lower.
It's almost like the safety's targeting the receiver, not the other way around. I totally agree with that logic. And that's a great question by Ron, because by default, you would think corners are going to get targeted more in the pass game. Absolutely.
So let's see if we can get the second page to trigger here. Yeah, this is being really, really, as Matt would say, wonky this morning. Terrible. But so the second page, so obviously these aren't the true number ones, but this is the second page, and we'll keep on going down the line here. Let's look for the next Green Bay Packer and where they come into play. Passer rating when targeted. Keyshawn Nixon at 103.7. Listen, is that a great number? It's not. But again, when you're, 68th, right, which would be, I don't know how many were on the other one, plus 70, so it would probably be somewhere around 140 mark. I don't know why they do things this strange on NFL Pro, but the point is Keyshawn Nixon is our second best corner in terms of passer rating when targeted. Now, when you look at Carrington Valentine at a 103.9, just 0.2 of a point lower than Keyshawn Nixon, that would suggest Carrington is your third best corner on the team. That's what we've talked about. Now, is he significantly better statistically or grade-wise than Eric Stokes? Absolutely not. But the point is, Eric Stokes doesn't have a contract next year. Carrington's much younger, and he's still under contract. Why not get him those meaningful reps over Eric Stokes? And I know I've been vocal about it. I'm pretty sure you've been vocal about it too, Tim. I don't want to put words in your mouth. And other fans, we talked about that. Like, get Carrington those meaningful reps, and let's see if this dude can handle it or not, right?
Yeah, look, we had to do that with the guy that we thought was fictitious forever. We had to throw Zane Anderson into the fire. Hell, we might throw him into the fire again this week against Seattle. You got to see it. You do. And, I think there's reason to be excited about a guy like Carrington Valentine. We've seen numerous flashes from him these past couple of years, and you kind of know what you're getting, with Eric Stokes Jr. out there. So, I don't think anybody here listening to the pod or following the Packers thinks that Eric Stokes is going to be on this team next year. And if you kind of know that in your heart of hearts, especially as a staff or as a coach, you got to look to your other guys, man. You really do. And it's not to say that you're not going to bench Eric Stokes. You're paying the guy. We need corner depth. I love him as a rotational dude, but as far as taking away snaps from a guy like Valentine or even a Kalen King, I'd love to see Kalen King see the field a little bit here too, going forward. But I don't think Eric Stokes is a part of the future plans here in Green Bay.
It doesn't feel like it, unless it's going to be like a minimal contract. And honestly, with his type of athleticism and what draft grades other teams probably had on him, I don't think he will squeak through free agency with just minimum.
What do you think about the Patrick Peterson rumors?
Yeah, I'm not a big fan, me personally. Listen, Patrick Peterson was awesome 10 years ago. His PFF grade last year was like somewhere around 60, which isn't horrible, but at the same time, think of it this way. We're sitting here saying we need to get Carrington Valentine and Kalen King meaningful reps, right?
And then we're talking about bringing in some old free agent
to take those reps. This is Bill Parcells 101. It's called a progress stopper, right? It's why we traded Preston Smith. Guys, Preston Smith, his pressure rate went up significantly when he got to Pittsburgh, right? Yep. You would look at his pressure rate in Pittsburgh and go, why the hell we get rid of him? Because you're trying to get LVN those meaningful reps, right? Yep. And you're seeing LVN start to improve. It seems like the first 2 weeks with Preston gone, I believe it's been 2 weeks, at least 2 weeks. It feels like it's been a lifetime. It's like of the last 3 weeks, you had improvement, now a setback. Now you're wanting to see that improvement again, right? Just like you're looking at a stock chart, right? You want it to go up and to the right. There's going to be downs. That's going to happen, but you just want to see that consistent improvement as you move through the season. So the same thing would apply with Patrick Peterson. You bring in Patrick Peterson, now you're putting those guys right back on the bench, and you're taking those meaningful.
That's a guy you look to bring in if you're going into the playoffs, right? We know the season's over. We've got to play wild card game, whatever we got to do. And we lost a corner, or we lost another, say somebody got hurt and now they're not available. You may look to bring in a veteran to get you over the hump and push through the playoffs. But I don't think right now at this point it's time to do that. Yeah.
I don't see it. Now, if it was like Stephon Gilmore, right, when they brung him into Minnesota, I think it was to reunite him with B-Flow. Listen, I understood that when you got a former defensive player of the year, you got a guy who was closer to his better years than further away. To me, Patrick Peterson, I never liked the hype. Even when he was at his peak, it was, to me, I just constantly found myself going, when you ask people what they like about him, it's never like fundamentals. It's never he's a winner. It's never those. It's just like he's this flashy cornerback that I just never was a big fan of. I don't think he's a bad person, but again, I'm looking for those guys. I tell you, Keyshawn Nixon's impressed the hell out of me because he'll stick his nose in there and tackle too, right? And I know he's not been perfect, but what you have seen with Keyshawn is you've seen steady improvement and at a good, cheap price too, in my opinion. So let's see. As far as next on the list here, Javon Bullard, 104.6. Obviously, he's our slot defender. Not a great number, but he's definitely higher than Stokes. As you see, Stokes here comes in at 112.5. So that's why I'm just like, hey, let's move away from Stokes already, please. So those are your DBs. I want to go rapid fire here because I really wanted to get to the linebackers. We're not going to hit run stops, and I'm going to tell you why for safeties or DBs. It's not as important for corners, and we know our safety room's set. We've got our 2 safeties of the future. You've got Xavier McKinney and you've got Evan Williams. Right? We're good to go. So what we wanted to look at was linebacker and go, okay, how do we look in passer rating when targeted? Okay, we want to key in on that first. And then we're going to hop over and look at run stops because that's just as, if not more important, to playing linebacker in the NFL. So we're going passer rating when targeted. Let's see where the first Packer falls on the list. Let's keep on moving down the line here if we can. All right. Got to go pretty far here, Tim. This ain't good.
Right, so my goodness.
Here's the guy.
You got Quay Walker at 100.8, right? And that's in the 63 spot, passer rating when targeted. But you'll notice Edgerrin Cooper is on this list. He was filtered out through the qualifiers, okay? So if we remove the qualifiers, all right, let's take that away real quick, and then go by rating again, passer rating when targeted. Now you're going to get a bunch of zeros here, right? It might be easier just to go to the Packers page because there's going to be a bunch of noise here. Matter of fact, I've got that pulled up. I want to show where Quay was on the national stage. And now let me pull up the Packers. Hopefully it will key up here. Let me make sure we get the right one. Bang. There we go. All right. So here we go. Okay, cool. All right, so we removed the qualifiers now, okay? Now let's look on the Packers roster. Remember where Quay was. He was like in the 60-something spot, right? Now let's compare apples to apples across the board here at the linebacker position and go passer rating when targeted, right? Tyron Hopper is first at 0, and you go, what? He's 0 passer rating? Yeah, now look at his snaps. 6 snaps, right? You got to throw that out, okay? Up next, Edgerrin Cooper, 277 snaps. Passer rating when targeted, 75.6. Quay is 100.8. So when you're talking about players who played significant snaps, Quay is now at 691 snaps on the year. Hey, kudos to Quay for staying healthy. And again, I think he's playing better this year than he has in previous years. Edgerrin Cooper, 75.6. Telling you, that's our linebacker of the future. It doesn't mean Quay's not going to be here. It doesn't mean he's not going to get extended. But that's the dude, in my opinion, is showing both in the passing game and the running game, and we'll check that here in just a second. That's the dude I want to be the centerpiece of my defense, our Fred Warner, if you will, right? So, again, Quay at 100.8. Eric Wilson, 103.3. He's a free agent this year. I think that you're probably going to bring Eric Wilson back on somewhat of a minimal contract. I don't think he'll get a whole lot of attention in free agency, seeing that he's 30 years old. And obviously, when you're looking at some of the metrics here, 103.3 not being great. Now, PFF has Eric Wilson as our highest graded player, right? That's why it's important. And we always say PFF isn't everything, but we're going to compare the two. So when you look at Edgerrin Cooper's PFF grade and how he's graded out elite in some cases this year, a few games, and then you go and check his passer rating when targeted, he really pops off the screen. Does that make sense to him? Like Edgerrin Cooper's that dude if he can stay healthy.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that may have a bearing on, whether or not they do decide to, sign Eric Wilson again. I mean, you're looking at the mentality of get away a year early rather than a year late. You got a guy hitting 30 years old. You've got Edgerrin Cooper and Tyron Hopper. You've got some youth there. Zay McDuffie, that's a guy that, we're not really sure what the future holds for him, but I believe he's a few years younger than Eric Wilson, right? I think McDuffie's 27 or something, 28. So, yeah. So and that's not the only determining factor, but right. I think it lends to your point that who knows how much attention a guy like Eric Wilson's going to get in the free agent market. And if you can get him for the cheap, why not bring him back? But again, you're not going to use him as a progress stopper. You want Cooper to see the field. You want Tyron Hopper to see the field. Hell, if you're going to keep Quay around, you're going to want to see Quay on the field. So you're looking at a rotational guy at best. So I think it's going to depend on, really the development of guys like Cooper and Hopper. Cooper's one of those guys too. We got to keep an eye on, man. We talked about you can't make the club in the tub. Right. He's had this issue since camp, missed the entire preseason. We didn't get to see a lot of action earlier this year. We were excited when, he was finally able to see the field, and then we got a good chunk of that. Like you said, almost 300 snaps, and then we haven't seen Coop in a while. So hopefully he sees the field and, he's back out there doing what he does best.
Yeah, for sure. So, again, when we did our evaluation, one of the things we came up with, we need to draft a linebacker. We need to keep looking for that stud linebacker, right? We may have it in Edgerrin Cooper. Quay may finish the year strong. We go, okay, we got it there too. You need to keep looking for it if you don't know 100% that you got it. And somebody in the chat here, there's Bates. Appreciate you, Bates. McDuffie's only 25. That's wild.
Yeah.
I was thinking.
I thought he was older than that.
Yeah. But again, McDuffie's passer rating when targeted 126.1. We've seen him attacking the run. We've seen him when he plays curl flat and he's downhill on a swing pass or something like that. There's few. He's probably best on the team at that, to be honest with you.
Yep.
But when he has to cover vertically, struggle there, right? So
yeah, downhill is great. Laterally is great. He's a great sideline to sideline linebacker too. Chase a guy down in the flat kind of thing. But yeah, if he's got to turn the hips and run up, that's not the dude you want to see in the Tampa 2 looks. For sure.
So the point of showing this, guys, and again, I didn't know exactly how this would work out, but now that we got the numbers in front of us, Edgerrin Cooper is your best pass defender at the linebacker position on the Packers roster, right? I feel comfortable saying that. So when we go to run stops, right, when we go to run defense and we go to stops again, that is preventing a player from having like I think it was something like a significant gain is the word they use. So it's something like 2 yards or less, or 2 yards. It might have been 3 yards or less that they're the tackler that prevented a ball carrier from gaining that kind of yards. It might have even included in the passing game too, maybe on screens, things like that. But nonetheless, Quay Walker leads the team with 40 stops, right? McDuffie's got 39. Now, here's what I want to point out, though. The percentage of playtime, right? Defensive playtime percentage, Quay's at 92%. Look at Edgerrin Cooper, 45. So you can pretty much double Edgerrin Cooper's numbers here, right? What will happen when you do that, that passer rating when targeted will probably raise a little bit. I don't think it'll raise much, but you can double the stops. He's now at 44. That would be more than Quay. And it's not significantly more, but the point is, look at the difference between Quay's 100.8 passer rating when targeted and Edgerrin Cooper 75.6. So to me, every statistical category, plus the PFF grade, plus watching the tape when he's healthy, Edgerrin Cooper is a better linebacker than Quay. Now, there's somebody in the chat that said something here. Josh Martin said, Cooper should be middle linebacker, Quay should be weak side linebacker. That's something, Josh, that's being phased out of the game right now. And what I mean by that, you'll hear me talk about on Chalk Talk all the time. Quay's the will on this play. Next play, he's the mock. He's the will, he's the mock. They're very, very interchangeable. It's more about what the front's doing, because if we're playing zone defense the large majority of the time, you're not going to see those linebackers cross when motion's used. It's just simply, let me put it this way. Let's say they come out from the offense's perspective and they're in a strong left look. Okay, so they're strong left, and we come out and Quay's the right linebacker from the defensive standpoint, right? He's on the tight end side, and let's say Edrin's on the left. That makes Quay the mock in our nickel 4-2-5. Quay would be the mock, and Edrin would be the will. Well, if they motion that Y over, if they motion the tight end over, you'll notice they don't switch. If they do, they're in man coverage, and you got a specific assignment, right? What will happen is he'll motion over, they'll pass it off. So if we go back to the original formation where the tight end was over Quay's side, making him the mock, and Edrin Cooper was going to fire on a blitz, well, now they motion him over. What will happen is the play will flip. Now Quay becomes the will, he's firing, because the play call is will fire, and everyone knows what their assignment is. Does that make sense? Yep. That's why it's very interchangeable. So when you say, Cooper should be a middle linebacker, Quay should be the weak side linebacker, that's really not a thing anymore, right? They're very interchangeable in that nickel set. Now, if you're talking about your base defense, your 4-3, that is a very real thing. Who is going to play mock? Who's going to be playing will? Who's going to be playing Sam? And now the Sam and the will become very interchangeable. There's still a lot of people in the media, as Matt LaFleur would say, they're exposing themselves for their lack of football knowledge, thinking that the 1993 version of a Sam backer still exists. It doesn't. Maybe at college, but in the pros, it just doesn't. The game has changed. It used to be an extra defensive lineman that could essentially cover the tight end. Levon Kirkland was one in Pittsburgh that I grew up watching. That was just this big, huge, like 300-pound linebacker that could set the edge as a Sam because teams were running the ball so often. And then he could also cover the tight end down the seam if he need be. So the point there is those two have got to be interchangeable. They've got to be interchangeable. That's why you need two really good inside linebackers on your team, because you want to model your entire roster to fit a nickel set, because that's the formation you're going to be in the majority of the time. And that's why I'm not convinced that we have two great ones yet. I'm just not. I think, like I said, I think Quay could finish strong, and we could look up and go, all right, man, he's proven it. Let's give him a contract. How much? We can argue that later. But I think if the draft was today and free agency was today, you go look for a linebacker. We were here last year, Tim. We were here last year, and we were screaming Bobby Wagner. We were screaming Blake Cashman. We were screaming Alzaire, and they didn't go do it. Luckily, we landed Edrin Cooper, but Edrin Cooper hasn't been on the field like those players have this year, aside from Alzaire, who's obviously got suspended for 3 games for trying to physically assault Trevor Lawrence on the football field. So, I don't mean to laugh, but it's just that was one of the guys we were excited about because we loved the violence in which he tackled with, and then lo and behold, it cost him 3 games, right?
Yep.
So, anything you want to add to that linebacker top? I know, like Holmes says here, I think Hopper will be good. I hope so, Holmes. I just haven't seen it. He hasn't played.
That would be a great outlier right there. If all of a sudden we had, we got Cooper humming, we got Tyron Hopper flashing. Maybe we get Quay back on a slight discount, and now we're looking really good there in the middle. But we just haven't seen it. We want to see more of Cooper, and we definitely want to see more Tyron Hopper.
Yeah, and so think about this. When you talk about contractually, let's assume that the players who are going to be free agents this year don't come back, okay? The only returning linebackers you have on this roster are Quay Walker, Edrin Cooper, and Tyron Hopper, right? That means Tyron Hopper, by default, will become your number 3 linebacker, okay? And then you go out and you draft a player or two, and let's say you have someone fall in the 2nd or 3rd round that you're just as excited about as you was like an Edrin Cooper, right? Like Peyton Wilson, if I remember correctly, was our top linebacker in the draft. And Peyton Wilson, I think, went after Edrin Cooper. We had Junior Colson, Peyton Wilson, Cedric Gray, and then Edrin Cooper is how we had them listed, okay? So imagine if you would have gotten Peyton Wilson as well as Edrin Cooper, right? Your linebacker room looks a lot better right now. He is a stud in Pittsburgh. He's playing great, right?
Sure.
So take a swing or two in the draft here. Now, I think there's a decent chance, me personally, that either Eric Wilson or Isaiah McDuffie will be back, possibly both of them. I think they like them that much. It's just going to depend on what happens when they hit free agency. What kind of
It's like Prince is saying in the chat, right? Like, great comment. Wilson more likely to accept a shorter deal, maybe less money at 30 than McDuffie, who's looking for a second contract where, we know how this league works. This is where you try to get your money on that second contract. So maybe McDuffie, that negotiation might be a little tougher. But another guy, too, that I don't know how much attention he's going to draw in the market. So there's a chance that at least one of these two would be back next year.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I like what Nick McSwain said here. Peyton Wilson. You seen those Peyton Manning commercials?
Yeah, it's Peyton.
Peyton Wilson?
Peyton.
Oh, man. Let's see. Prince in the chat going to break my heart. Peyton Wilson was available at 91 where we took Hopper. Man, it's interesting.
I don't want to pat you on the butt and you poop my hand. So
same, coach. Same. Yeah, that's tough, man, because again, let me just fact check myself real quick and we'll wrap up. We're already going over. I got to meet Mandy and JC. We're doing a big charity thing today. What did I say? Peyton Wilson, right?
Peyton
Wilson. Is that an E or a it's an A? Okay.
I think it's P-A-Y.
I just want to fact check myself here because I'm pretty sure he's having a hell of a year. According to PFF, Peyton Wilson, 77.9 PFF grade in Pittsburgh. Now, listen, he's in Pittsburgh. Mike Tomlin, you talking about just an all-out defensive guru. That dude, man, just does a phenomenal job getting those guys ready to go. And that's why you're seeing Preston Smith all of a sudden, bang, right?
Yeah. It's not just the system change, right? It's not just Preston going back to a 34. There's ultimately other factors. And playing on a Mike Tomlin defense, whether they're running the 4-3 or 34, it doesn't matter.
Definitely. Yeah, so if you had taken Peyton Wilson instead of Tyron Hopper, but, Prince, on the other hand, too, think about it this way, man, and I'm just kind of spitballing here. What does that say about Tyron Hopper, that they thought higher of him than they did Peyton Wilson? Could it have been the injury concern? We know Peyton Wilson had been hurt most of his college career, like he had a bunch of surgeries, if I remember correctly. But at the same time, put your money where your mouth is. Why hasn't he played if he's that good, right? You'd like to think he could beat out McDuffie or Eric Wilson if he's that good, if he's as good as Peyton Wilson. But
remember the other factor too. Sometimes the guys have all the physical attributes. They check the boxes. You love what you see, but they don't grasp the defense, and they're not processing the game quick enough. That can be an issue too.
Yeah. As Two-Tone in the chat says, I think we did not take him because of age and injury in college. And then, of course, Prince said the same thing. Yeah, I think it was injury concern. And, again, that's where, the whole age thing, I just laugh at that every year. And I think it is a real thing. I just crack up, though, that it's like it actually exists. Because I talk about this all the time. We'll wrap up here. When we get to the college, right, when we get to the college draft, I should say, we talk about, well, that player's too old. Well, no, he's 24, and we don't like guys that old. And then, the second that they're drafted, all of a sudden the talk becomes, well, he's a young, inexperienced guy. And it's like, what the heck? What are we doing here? We're talking about 1 or 2 years in age difference. And then when we're making the decision, it's a big issue that he's older. And then the second he's on the roster, well, he's inexperienced. It's like, come on, what are we doing, man? That's the thing, like with Bo Nix. Mm-hmm. Bo Nix has been playing college for 23 years, it feels like. And he gets to the NFL, and lo and behold, Sean Payton said in the draft process, that's my guy, and he just takes off, hits the ground running, right? So, we'll see what happens at the linebacker position, though. Hopefully all that made sense. Again, what we wanted to show was, all right, who are the best corners on the team from a statistical standpoint, passer rating when targeted, and we really wanted to key in on the linebackers. We got a little bit better idea of that now. To me, Edgerrin Cooper is the future. Quay, we still got a question mark. I feel comfortable saying Isaiah McDuffie, Eric Wilson, and Isaiah McDuffie and Eric Wilson, outside of somewhat of a minimal contract, let them walk. If they get a little bit of money, great. If we can get them back, I love them as depth, don't get me wrong. But Eric Wilson, PFF grade suggests, man, this dude's a stud. But then you look at the passer rating when targeted at 103.3, and it's like, okay, hold up a minute. And then also the run stops for him. He's only played 41% of the snaps, and he's at 23 stops, right? So Eric Wilson is actually based off of that playtime percentage. He's right there in the ballpark with Edgerrin Cooper. So he's pretty on par there. It's just the passer rating when targeted that really kind of triggers a worry. Now, Isaiah McDuffie's played 70% of the snaps, Tim. and he's only got 39 stops. You kind of worry about that a little bit. Same with Quay there, because when you double them, that's kind of what you come up with. And the big thing with McDuffie too is the 126.1 passer rating targeted. So he's good enough in the run game. Don't get me wrong, but the passing game, that's just a struggle. So, all right, you got anything else, big dog?
No, I think that covers it.
All right, guys, that's it. I'm going to get out of here. I'm going to stop talking. Appreciate y'all hanging out with us. Sorry we had to go 30 minutes early. I'm going to try to get on a somewhat regular schedule moving forward. It's just been a crazy week. And then, of course, yesterday, StreamYard absolutely crapped the bed. So glad to see they got their problem fixed. Boy, there were some people mad. They were mad.
Yeah,
they had to figure it out.
Big mad.
Imagine all the streamers that do a morning show were planning on going live. They go live, and everybody in their chat was doing the same thing with us, going, "Hey, we can't hear you." There was one dude I've seen. He said, I can't remember if it was like 5 hours in or maybe 5 minutes. I can't remember. They were going to do a 25-hour live stream, right? And then the day that they chose to do it, got everything organized. Imagine working your schedule to where I'm going to be freed up to do this, and then all of a sudden they don't have audio. I'd have been madder than hell. So anyway, that's it, guys. Appreciate y'all hanging out. We will see you tonight for PTA Live at 7 p.m. Central. For those of you listening on the pod, thank you for making us a part of your day. As always, let's go out and be the change we want to see in the world. Everybody have a great day. Go Pack.
There we go.
Bye, guys.